I noticed the cars before I even turned off the engine. At first, I thought someone had the wrong address. My house had never looked busy like that. 6 or 7 cars squeezed along the curb, another half blocking my driveway. After 3 days at a conference where every conversation had felt like a negotiation, the sight of strangers outside my home made my chest tighten. I sat there for a moment with my hands still on the steering wheel. Maybe my husband had invited people over, maybe a small party. It wouldn't have been the first time he forgot to mention something. But when I stepped out of the car, I could already hear music drifting through the open front door, lauder glasses clinking, the sound of many voices overlapping. I walked inside and stopped in the doorway. The living room furniture was gone. In its place were round tables covered in white cloths, folding chairs arranged neatly, flowers tied along the staircase railing. Someone had hung delicate strings of lights across the ceiling beams. For a strange second, I genuinely wondered if I had walked into the wrong house. Then I saw my mother-in-law. She was standing near the kitchen, holding a champagne flute like she was hosting a charity dinner. When she noticed me, her smile widened in a way that felt rehearsed. "Surprise!" she announced loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. The room quieted slightly, people turning toward us with curious expressions. I set my bag down slowly by the door. "What's going on?" I asked. She approached with the kind of confidence people have when they believe they're doing something noble. "Well," she said brightly, "since you're always traveling for work, we thought it was time to help my son reconnect with someone who actually values family." The words were delivered casually, almost kindly. I didn't respond. She gestured toward the dining area, where a few unfamiliar faces were standing awkwardly. "His high school sweetheart is coming tonight," she continued. "Old feelings deserve a chance, don't you think?" A ripple of quiet murmurs moved through the room. "And the divorce papers are on the counter," she added lightly. "We didn't want to blindside you." For a moment, I simply stood there, absorbing the shape of the evening she had created. Guests were pretending not to stare. My husband was near the window, his hands in his pockets. He looked like someone who had agreed to attend a meeting he didn't entirely understand. I walked past them all into the kitchen. The papers were exactly where she said they'd be, neatly stacked beside a pen. His signature was already on the last page. The ink looked slightly smeared. I heard footsteps behind me. My mother-in-law again. "You work too much," she said in a softer voice now, as if explaining something obvious. "Marriage needs presence." I didn't argue. Arguing would have made the scene she wanted. Through the open doorway, I could see people shifting in their chairs, waiting for something dramatic, anger, maybe tears. Instead, I leaned against the counter and glanced around the kitchen. The catering trays, the borrowed glassware, the decorations someone had taped to the cabinets. "You planned all this while I was away?" I asked. She lifted one shoulder. "Proud of it. Someone had to." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. A catering assistant hurried past us to answer it. A moment later, 2 people stepped inside. They weren't dressed like guests. Both carried slim folders and had the polite, neutral expressions of professionals who had done this sort of visit many times before. One of them spotted me. "Miss Patel?" he asked. I nodded. My mother-in-law frowned. "Who are they?" The man stepped forward. "We're here regarding the property compliance notice connected to the agreement filed this morning." His voice was calm but clear enough that several guests nearby began listening. My mother-in-law laughed awkwardly. "I think you have the wrong house." "I don't believe so," he replied, opening the folder. "This property was transferred earlier today into the operational holding connected to Miss Patel's consulting firm." The words landed quietly. No one reacted at first. He continued, still composed. "As part of that structure, the property is designated for residential and limited business use. Unauthorized commercial gatherings, such as catered events, require written approval." His colleague gestured gently toward the decorated living room. "This gathering appears to violate those terms." My mother-in-law's smile faltered. "This is a family event," she said sharply. The man nodded politely. Unfortunately, the presence of contracted vendors and ticketed catering qualifies it differently under the agreement. A slow wave of realization passed through the room. Guests began glancing at each other. My husband looked from the papers in the man's hands to me. "You changed the ownership," he asked quietly. "Last week," I said. It hadn't been a secret. Exactly. Just something I hadn't rushed to explain. Small things over the past year, comments, tensions, little attempts to sideline me in my own home had made the decision feel practical. The conference trip had simply been when the paperwork finalized. My mother-in-law looked around the room like the walls had shifted without permission. "You can't just shut down my event," she said. "I'm not shutting it down," I replied. The representative closed his folder. "We're simply informing the host that the event must conclude to remain within compliance." No threats, no raised voices. Just quiet certainty. Guests began standing up. Chairs scraped gently against the floor as people gathered their coats. The caterers started packing trays with the efficiency of workers who had seen plans unravel before. Near the doorway, a woman I didn't recognize stepped inside hesitantly. She looked around at the half-dismantled decorations, confused. Someone whispered to her. Her expression shifted quickly from anticipation to embarrassment. She left within a minute. My husband watched the room empty. "Did you know this would happen?" He asked me. I shook my head. I just prepared in case something did. Soon the house was quiet again. Only a few stray flowers remained tied to the staircase. The representatives left after exchanging a final nod with me. My mother-in-law stood near the doorway, stunned into silence. On the kitchen counter, the divorce papers were still waiting. I picked up the pen. For a moment, my husband looked like he might say something, an explanation, maybe an apology. But nothing came. I signed, not angrily, just steadily. The house felt different once the last car drove away. The decorations looked smaller now, almost fragile. I gathered my bag from the floor where I dropped it earlier. Humiliation is strange. It feels enormous while it's happening. But once the moment passes, once the outcome belongs to you again, it shrinks into something quieter, just another decision you survived.